can inspire us here in the modern day and age where we live? Our culture needs inspiration, and as we remember 9/11, we look around our world and see that there is so much wholehearted evil that is consuming everything around us. We see things like Netflix's new show Cuties, which is, as it turns out, worse than we imagined, and we can see moral decay just about everywhere we turn our eyes. But despite that, we have hope in Christ Jesus, and we do find a few pieces of good information here and there in our world. We find good information and good news coming from the U.S. Marshal Service, who are doing good work as defenders of children. And even in a lesser serious matter, but also nonetheless good, the U.S. Marshals are also the defenders of puppies, as we will find out today. And yes, that is in fact a real news story. They are the defenders of puppies as well. And we know that Christ is our ultimate inspiration across eternity, not just for one generation, but for all of us, no matter where we live. And when we look at our world right now, we are reminded that we are called to live Christ-like, which means that we should bring inspiration to the world around us. We look around and we see with our eyes that there are many real villains in our world, real Bond villains, real supervillains straight out of comic books, they with their themes and all sorts of just wily schemes that they're implementing. And we have to ask the question, if we did see such a ripe, fertile ground for villainy in our world, what superheroes might come to the real world from fiction? And who would we like to see rise in this moment to help us have inspiration, to give us some inspirational figures to see around us? So we're going to be talking about all of that and more. Thank you for joining us. This is Kingdom of the Logos, a Christian program of critical thinking and adventure. I'm Pastor J. Dillon Proctor, and there are two others here with me today in the studio.
I'm Pastor Amanda Sparrow.
And I'm Pastor Mike Proctor.
And Pastor Amanda, would you open us up in prayer as we begin?
Of course. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this blessing of time and space that we may come and gather to discuss the events of our world, but also to find moments of where we are fixing our eyes not on the things of this world, but on you. So give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and the holy courage to follow through. We ask these things in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
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 So we're almost 2 decades beyond 9/11. And as we look back, we can see how our nation could find unity after witnessing so great an evil. But now unity truly seems but a faint memory in our world around us, and our culture is in quite serious need of inspiration, something which has aspirations to achieve the great beauties and nobilities that we are called to as men and women created in the image of God. And today we are going to be talking about how we can be inspired. And for our main conversation, we are going to be talking about which superheroes we would like to see come in the world. But before we get there, I want to go over 2 quick things which happened in the news this week that are worth our attention. The first of which is Netflix's show Cuties. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's basically a little girl's beauty pageant of sorts, but it's got some other things mixed in there with it. And it is highly sexualized, and this was hypothesized to be sexualized based on the ads that came out early on, and as it turns out, it is worse than what people imagined, now that it's actually been released on Netflix. So I kind of want to ask to Pastor Amanda and Pastor Mike, should we from here forwards, whenever we hear something, whatever the topic is, should we just assume that it's worse than we imagined? Is that a fair way to look at the world going forwards?
Yeah, and of course this assumption doesn't negate our responsibility to investigate, but yeah, I think we always only hear a sanitized version of a story, so.
Yeah, I agree. We have to assume, but I think Pastor Amanda said something extremely important. That is, and we have to investigate, and we have to look and sort out what is fact, what have we been told lies about, what have we been misled in, and then of course, hopefully, what have we been told the truth about? So. I think we have to look at every situation and investigate it.
Yeah. And so another good story that happened, that was a bad story, but moving now to a good story. So another good story in the course of the U.S. Marshals. I should lead with that. So last few weeks, we've seen the U.S. Marshals. They have done really God's work in rescuing children. We saw Operation Safety Net, Operation Not Forgotten, both in Ohio and Georgia. We saw children being rescued. Well, this last week, the U.S. Marshals, they captured some Howell fugitives. So this is in Howell, which is in Monmouth, New Jersey. They arrested 2 who were wanted in the deaths of 4 stolen puppies. So these people here, they stole German Shepherd's puppies and killed them. And the U.S. Marshal Service ran in there and took care of the situation. And this kind of leaves me in a position where I've got a few questions. One, do we just need like a bat phone, like from the original 1966, like Batman TV series that's got like one button on it? You just call it and like, here, U.S. Marshal Service, we need you to go over to Netflix. I know that might be a little bit outside your jurisdiction, but it seems like y'all have the right energy and inertia to handle Netflix like they need to. So thank you, U.S. Marshal Service. Go to Netflix headquarters. Goodbye. What do y'all think? Should we just call the U.S. Marshal in on everything now?
I agree. I say yes. We do need a U.S. Marshal button, bat light or whatever, and just shine it up and say we need you, or just push the button and send them on over here, there, and everywhere. It is great to see our tax-paying dollars going to something great like this, and that's something I can truly get behind and support. And we see an element of justice taking place here. So yes.
Yeah. Amanda, do we need a bat phone for the U.S. Marshals?
Yeah, I think it's a weird thing that, we have rules and regulations for a reason that keep our various agencies in check so that innocent people aren't hurt. But there is something about those agencies that are doing what needs to be done that you wish they would just keep on doing that.
Yeah.
And you could enact your own sort of not vengeance, but we'll call it justice.
Well, you see, that's really why the Batman phone kind of reference works so well, because like in the original television Batman, the live action original one, Batman is like a actual like commissioned police officer.
Yeah,
but at the same time, he works outside the law just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think those kind of agencies are quite, and I've kind of likened them to almost the Jesuits who work within the Catholic Church, but they're always kind of that fringe. And I think every agency needs kind of that fringe agency within it that kind of pulls them anytime that they try to fall into bureaucracy or fall into corruption. There's somebody saying, hey, like, this is a good thing we're supposed to be doing. Let's keep doing it, but let's do it. Let's not fall into these kind of systemized destruction.
You've got that niche carved out where you really are doing the good work that you're supposed to and not just being run-of-the-mill bureaucratic garbage. Yeah.
And that's what, I think whether it's a phone or, like Mike said, the bat signal or something, we need more of that.
Yes, we need more of that. And I think that would be the appropriate reaction to Netflix at minimum is to send in the U.S. Marshal Service. It deserves more than that. But the U.S. Marshal Service, that's a little outside the jurisdiction. I know that. I get it. But, we're going to call them up. All right, so getting into our big conversation that I want us to have today. So we are in need of inspiration, and particularly we are in an age of wholehearted evil. Now this wholehearted evil, it is distinguished by being evil that ignores truth. It ignores truth and goodness rather than simply trying to defy it. This is evil that looks strikingly like innocence to those that do not have eyes transformed by God. And this is evil that it wants to instill unbelief, especially inside the church. And as Matthew tells us in chapter 6, verse 23 says, "But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great then is that darkness?" And this is really the idea that there are things which profess themselves to be light, but they're not. This is the truly flipping of the script that says good is evil and evil is good. You can go back to the Old Testament, you can look in Isaiah, you can find even in the Psalms, the Proverbs, this whole wisdom given about the way of wickedness, the wiles of the accuser. They come and they try to flip the script on what is good, what is evil. Even in the book of Job really is put through all the suffering because the accuser comes along and says, hey, God, Job's not really a good man. You're paying him to be good. There is no real righteousness. There's no real good. It's all evil. And God says, no, there is good and evil. And you find that interesting poetry there, which is brutal to read, but is nonetheless meaningful. And we put that in the larger context of our world, and we are reminded that there is real good and evil, but the line between the two is a difficult line to walk. The line that is straight and narrow, that looks towards good and understands where we are called to go, where we are called to walk in the light, that we're not just to be neutral, that we're supposed to just take this morally amoral stance, but we are to be ones who assert what is good, what is true, what is beautiful, to walk that line towards Christ and not be confused, not be deceived by what is evil. That is such a difficult thing. So in our modern day and age, there's no question that villains are real. Sinful hearts that are being possessed by wholeheartedly evil ideas, it is a terrible combination. And we can see in our world around us that supervillains, themed supervillains, Bond villains, they're all real. And we're in a time which is really illuminating that. But this is also a time ripe for great figures of hope and aspiration. And I think our world is really hungry for some hope and aspiration. So I want us to answer the question of what comic book character would you like to bring to life if you could, and why? Now, we ran out of time for this last week, so that's why we're doing this as our main conversation. And I'll just let us begin. My answer is going to be Superman, because he is wholeheartedly good, and people cannot write good Superman stories right now because our culture does not believe in absolute truth. It doesn't believe in absolute goodness, and therefore writers can't write a Superman story because we think, well, we have to do something complicated where there's this sort of internal struggle. Our culture doesn't understand something which is good because it is. You know, the whole name of God, I am. This whole idea of something being fundamentally good, but I'll get into that in a minute. That's just my little foretaste. And now I'm going to turn this over to Amanda. Who would you bring?
My first answer was Captain America. And actually, when I was talking to some friends or just people about it, I had mentioned that, and it shocked somebody. And I think it was because I've been vocal in the group that I was discussing about some of my disappointments and critiques about the America and its government and some structural things that need to be addressed. And so I think they were surprised. They're like, well, Captain America, why him? I'm like, because, well, actually, Captain America, if we look at his story, both in the comics and in the MCU, he stands for justice. He stands for compassion. And one of his lines in his first movie that's often repeated is that he doesn't like bullies no matter where they come from. And he fights against these systems of oppression, whether it's, Hitler and Nazi Germany, or it's even his own government, his own agency. And we see that in Civil War storylines, and even a little bit in Winter Soldier. The reason I like him is because he has this strong moral stance, and he's not afraid to stand against people, even his own friends. Even the people he thought were supposed to be supporting him, and he was even supposed to be responsible to and for, he stands up for what's right. And that's what there's a personality thing, and I don't give him a lot of credit, but one of these personality books talks about the personality type of the loyal skeptic. And that's what my sister says I am. So maybe I relate deeply to Captain America. But I think that's what Captain America is as well. The loyal skeptic is someone who stands for something, who stands firm and faithful within a certain maybe organization, group, or even faith, but also is the voice that says, maybe we shouldn't be doing that, or maybe we should be doing this better, or maybe we need to be thinking this and rethinking this and reviewing it. And I think we need that in our culture, in our country today, is not someone who's just wanting, because also I've been accused of being an anarchist as well. We don't need to burn everything to the ground. Maybe. No. But we do need, there are some things that do need to be deconstructed.
To kind of pick up where you're at.
Yeah. I'll ramble for hours on this. So
there is a difference between a disloyal skeptic and a loyal skeptic.
Yeah.
And what we see taking prominence in our society right now are disloyal skeptics.
Well, I think some people, to give people the benefit of the doubt, I think there are people who really want real good change, but it's like they can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah. And
that's what it takes, patience and strength. And listen, that might call us to do some ugly things. So I'm not against doing what needs to get done. And sometimes that may look like disobeying laws. But we have to know why we're doing it, and then we have to know what are we replacing when we deconstruct something. And so, again, it may look a lot like vigilantism, but within a certain context.
Yeah.
And I think Captain America toes that line so beautifully, that he, even better than someone like Batman, or even, I know you're going to talk about Superman, but I think Captain America just does it so well. And he works also so well within a group with people like Tony Stark and, Iron Man, who are complete opposites of him. And yet he is able to work within people he disagrees with, and yet still find unity of purpose and unity of getting the job done. So that's what, I could talk hours about this, because I really love Captain America. So he's my choice. If anyone could come out of the fictional world and set the world straight, it would be Steve Rogers.
Yeah. All right. Pastor Mike.
Well, I would go probably with Wonder Woman for several reasons. Number one, I think our culture is at a place where truth doesn't really seem to matter anymore, and she has that lasso of truth, and we need truth. And even we see Pilate with Jesus, what is truth? And Christ Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. But I think there's a tremendous need for truth because our people in this country have been lied so much to through different ways and culture that it is absolutely exhausting searching for what is the truth almost every story. As we mentioned earlier, you need to investigate. You just, you can assume maybe the worst, but you got to investigate, and that's exhausting. It's exhausting on myself, and I'm sure it is for most everyone that I talk to. But at the end of the day, I think having someone that is, a loyalist to the country, there's a need for patriotism to come back to this country, I feel like. And, maybe our country has some faults, has some problems, but it still is a country that I feel like has great potential. And it is an opportunity for us to make those changes. But I would love to see the lasso of truth be, placed on a lot of our leaders in this country, in our churches, in our education systems, everywhere.
Alrighty. Well, and this is going to be an interesting conversation because my take on things, kind of combining what y'all said, which personally, I'm not a big fan of deconstruction because I've seen so many times people take apart things and they don't realize that they didn't really understand what they were taking apart. And I think if we were to put the Wonder Woman lasso of truth around people, we would find that there are a lot less people who are loyal skeptics than we think there are. And simply because, the scriptures teaches of this, 1 John, the first epistle of John, just to be specific there, in chapter 2, it reminds us in verse 16, for all that is in the world, the desires, the flesh, the desire of the eyes, the pride and riches, it comes not from the Father, but of the world. And, outside of God, everything does eventually end up in Gehenna. Like, that's just the way that it goes. Outside of that, there is no restraint. And I really do think there's a lot of people who have told themselves that they're interested in revolution for good reasons. But when we look at history, whether you look at Italy, whether you look at Germany, whether you look at Russia, whether you look at China, you generally find that they, on the front end, told you we were loyal skeptics, but in the end it was, I want my tyranny to be imposed on you. It wasn't actually, we want to make things better. And when we look at our world right now, my answer to this question, though initially I wanted to say that it was Zorro, but no, it's actually not. It's Superman. When I was younger, I wasn't typically interested in Superman. I had been so kind of indoctrinated by our modern culture that I thought, Superman, he would be boring because he's like so perfect, he doesn't have any sort of, story arc. But that was all hogwash. I had been brainwashed. No, Superman is a character that we need right now, especially because he is wholehearted good. We are seeing wholehearted evil in a way that a lot of people are not used to in our world. And Hollywood knows how to write a character that is wholeheartedly evil. I think one of the best characters I've ever seen written was also the most evil character I've ever seen written. And again, I don't say it's best written because I think she was good or I like her, but I mean, they just executed it to perfection. Is this character Rose the Hat from Stephen King's book, The Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. And I've got a picture here of Rose the Hat pulled up, and I would like to see a Superman movie where it's Superman versus
Rose the Hat.
Rose the Hat, because what you would get in that is wholehearted evil versus wholehearted good. And if you don't know who Rose the Hat is, she is kind of this woman, kind of a hippie-esque, who she doesn't have eternal life, but she has near eternal life from killing children and eating their souls. And she tortures children to death, and somehow that flavors their soul as she eats it. It is evil beyond anything I've ever seen. And it was a character that actually had, not some misunderstood, not really a villain, just society made her do it. No, wholehearted evil. And Superman, who is wholeheartedly good, which of course the character of Superman is a little bit of a combination between Moses and Christ himself, this idea of one coming to bring deliverance, and to see something aspirational, which of course nobody can be Superman. Just like we are not called, when we're told to be Christ-like, we're not called to go up to the throne of heaven, do some Tower of Babel monument where we've got our big ladder, we've got our big staircase, and we're suddenly up there at the throne of heaven and we say, oh yes, God, move aside, I have this throne. No, we're called to be Christ-like because we aspire to something, and the closer and closer we get to it, the more beautiful the world is, and the more beautiful we are as we navigate the world, and we love our neighbors and even our enemies. And we need a Superman type aspirational figure in pop culture. We need these stories. Of course, Superman is a perfect template for this, but the reason why people can't write a good Superman story is because our culture has ceased to believe in absolute truth, in absolute good, in absolute morality, and therefore Hollywood writers, they don't know how to write Superman. You've got to have these the Superman Returns movie, which people kind of
I don't think I've actually watched the entire. I don't think I've ever. You know what? We were talking last week about, like, after the show, movies we never finished, and I do believe Superman Returns is a movie I never finished.
It's not that bad of a movie, but it's not that good. The Man of Steel movie was much better. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as transcendentally good as it could have been, and I think that really was because Hollywood doesn't have that appreciation for, like, they can make into the movie the sacrifice. They tried to take those Christian elements of, this is basically God being incarnate, surrendering himself, allowing himself to be handcuffed and that sort of thing. But they don't really understand what that means. But it was very obvious that they do understand what wholehearted evil means, because when they came to write Rose the Hat, or Stephen King did, nailed, this is basically the devil incarnate. Evil beyond our imagination. So I actually think this is a good selection of characters. Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. Captain America. Does he need to have a motorcycle too?
Yes.
Yes. The
I'm sure I'm saying yes for a totally different reason than Mike is, but yes.
Well, what? The motorcycle is aspirational. Yeah. We need a little bit of that unchained vinegar in the blood. Ride that motorcycle.
And I'm so sad that, like, because we're not going to have Iron Man or Steve Rogers as Captain America, or Chris Evans as Captain America, or Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man anymore in the future movies. It's just, I wish almost they would go back and remake. They could remake the first Captain America, and I would be happy. And they could remake the second and third Iron Man again. I would be happy.
Well, I think most people would be happy if Iron Man 2 and 3 were remade. I don't know that anybody would give you any. But
it's sad we won't have those characters anymore, and I'll be intrigued to see how their legacy will be lived out in the next Marvel phase. And also because, like you're saying, I think art reveals the current culture. Art can influence the current culture, and we see that. And so, for some reason, Marvel's been able to do a little bit better with its storytelling than DC.
Yes.
And we'll see, again, how the future rolls. So, and also because Disney now owns MC, how they're going to do with it, and with Marvel, the MCU.
Well, really on the television side, is they're trying to pull that way.
And I think there's... And I think so far, early on, they were able to give their characters complexity, but still you knew which each character was. Like, you weren't confused on their characteristics, on their strengths, and where they stood. But they could still be complex people dealing with a complex world. And I don't think DC has been able to do that. Like you're saying, it's almost been very muddled. You're not entirely sure what's going on.
Well, you're not entirely sure who to root for.
Exactly, yeah. You're like, wait, am I... Do I want Superman to win? And so maybe, hopefully, DC can do better. Though I enjoyed the last movie with Harley Quinn. So I don't know. They might be finding some success. I'm not sure.
Yeah. We shall find out. Well, we'll wrap up there. I think that was a good conversation. We're going to get to a Bible study, and then we're going to play Buy, Sell, or Hold. We're going to have some fun at the end of this with some fall stuff. As we're getting close to fall, but it's not officially fall yet, so that's going to be part of the Buy, Sell, or Hold. How ready are you for fall? We'll get to all that. We'll get to all that in a moment. So thank you for joining us. We will be back. All right, as we are coming back, our world really does need inspiration. And when we look to the Holy Scriptures, we are reminded that it's all true. It's all true. And tonight, Pastor Mike is going to lead us in a study as we look to our Holy Scriptures. So, Pastor Mike, if you would, lead us off.
Okay, well, we're going to look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 1 through 6. And so it is a letter from the Apostle Paul, who is writing to the church at Corinth, who has had they've had some super apostles, super preachers come in and speak. And obviously they are saying and preaching something other than the gospel. So I'm going to ask Pastor Amanda, if she will, to go ahead and read this passage from what we consider the second letter of Corinthians. We're not sure how many letters are there for sure. It looks like maybe the second letter's combined some multiple letters, but nonetheless, this is an ongoing thing that Paul is dealing with. And as we've been talking about superheroes, we need some heroes in the church world today. So, Pastor Amanda, will you read that for us?
Sure. Hear the word of the Lord from 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 1 through 6. I wish you would bear with me in a little foolishness. Do bear with me. I feel a divine jealousy for you, for I promised you in marriage to one husband, to present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. But I am afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by its cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from a sincere and pure devotion to Christ. For if someone comes and proclaims another Jesus than the one we proclaimed, or if you receive a different spirit from the one you received, or a different gospel from the one you accepted, you submit to it readily enough. I think that I am not in the least inferior to these super apostles. I may be untrained in speech, but not in knowledge. Certainly in every way and in all things we have made this evident to you.
Okay. Well, obviously Paul is being sarcastic in his language when he calls those evangelists or whatever that are corrupting the gospel as super apostles. But looking back and looking at our letters that we have and the disciples who became apostles, I want to say that Paul is the super apostle himself, even though he's being sarcastic. What is your thoughts on this, Pastor Dylan?
Well, Paul is writing to the fact that there are people that are going to be bringing deception.
Yeah.
I mean, this is principally one of the things that he addresses throughout a lot of his writings. I mean, this is one of the reasons why he is so moved. And this is one of the reasons why the various churches, they kept all these letters in circulation, because deception is a big problem. But oftentimes, one of the things that I find is that people are largely unwilling to admit that they are being deceived. And, the fact that you kind of talk about Paul using sarcasm there, being able to mock those who are deceiving, sometimes draws some truth to it. Like the Babylon Bee is extremely effective. And pointing out just how you are being deceived by something by bringing that level of mockery to it. And so I think there's actually some skilled maneuvering there that Paul does, because wholehearted evil, it comes to you presenting itself as innocence. And this is something very common in our modern world. So that's really my take on it.
Pastor Amanda, a lot of times, especially in some of these comic book heroes and movies that we've been talking about, it's like the enemy or the villain. He almost has this popularity at some point in time before he changes. And is it, does that kind of fit this story, you think?
Yeah. Well, and I think one, it's easier, and therefore it's going to be popular to kind of to follow these super apostles, whether it's because of apathy or you're allowed to do things that are destructive to others but maybe helpful for yourself. For whatever reason, it does seem they get more attention. And like what Pastor Dylan was saying, people, whether because they want it to fall for it or they don't want to admit that they fell for it, they're not willing to take that step into looking into these things. And so, and I also I think it's interesting, Paul, in the sarcastic language, he's not acting out of jealousy, although he does say I'm jealous, but it's not like a petty jealousy. This is truth. And if you're falling for something that's not truth, then this is the consequences of these actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that jealousy is more of he is jealous for the people there. In other words, he loves them. He doesn't want to see them being deceived and hurt and torn away from the gospel. This passage, as we've already articulated, is about false teachers. And, the question is, we have those, I'm going to use Paul's language here, super preachers today that are scratching ears. And I believe totally that it's harmful to the gospel. And so I'm going to ask you this. This is just a yes or no question. Do you believe there are, and I'm going to use Paul's language, super preachers today that are corrupting the gospel?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's obvious, but I think people are sometimes deceived and confused and all of these things. All right, so we got one more here I want to, I believe, as I said earlier, that Paul is really using sarcastic, that he is the super apostle himself, in my book anyway. And so he is not the greatest orator, but the ones who were coming, obviously they had been trained in speech, and they were very good at arguing, and Paul may have not even been able to win an argument with him. Nonetheless, we must realize that Paul is not condemning knowledge. In fact, I think knowing Christ, the knowledge of knowing Christ, is the greatest decision we could ever make. However, to know Christ is that one-time moment, but it is an ongoing action that lasts throughout our life. So I want to ask this question, I think there are still what we all would consider Apostle Pauls in this world today, in the sense that they have invested in us, they have led us in the right direction. And so I'm going to give each one of you and myself an opportunity. Name one person that you could say in your life is an Apostle Paul to you. And I'm going to start with Amanda, which has a whole host of family that are Apostle Pauls, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there's many people in my life I could claim. I think the person, if I can name just one, I would name my mamaw. And I think the reason for that is, especially if we're talking about kind of learning and education, I remember shortly after we had moved out of their house, we stayed with them after my first dad passed away, and then my mom remarried, and we moved. And we came back, and they had turned one of our bedrooms into kind of a library. And I remember my mamaw telling me about something, and I think it was about biblical information. I can't remember exactly what it was, but she was explaining a map to me. And it was there that I learned that she actually studied Latin and theology of the church. And as a kid, I just remember thinking, well, no, mamaw doesn't. She'd always been mamaw, and she hadn't been like a great biblical scholar in my mind. And so this was very mind-blowing for me as a little kid to hear this. And also because she always was a supportive role. She wasn't the preacher. She wasn't a teacher. But she supported preachers and teachers, and she opened up her home and her life to taking care of preachers and teachers. And so it was just, for me to see someone who never fit within that typical quote-unquote pastoral role, and yet was so pastoral and so invigorated in studying and learning scripture and studying and teaching her children and her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren that. And so she's been a great inspiration of just this continual ministry in whatever context she has found herself.
She may have not had the title as pastor or apostle, but there is no doubt that she invested in you tremendously, and that's what we see Paul doing in the churches and other people. Dylan?
Well, I'm going to take this a little bit different avenue. So when you look at Paul, he obviously gives a lot of moral correction to the church. He lays down a lot of precise theological concepts. And he does so in such a way that really elevates the truth of God above not just himself. He goes out of his way to say, this is not something which is mine, that belongs to me. Because when the whole question asks, who baptized you, things of that nature. So to look at somebody like that, it's got to be somebody who is giving that precision of theological correction. And that's sort of more their goal than it is to just kind of go around and beat people with a club. So actually, sitting over your head there, Dad, is the little blue Bible of Reverend Dan Sprouse, Dr. Sprouse, he's been a preacher. He's done a lot of things, even from working on little roadster cars, but has also told a lot of people things they didn't want to hear, and gave that moral correction to a variety of churches and a variety of people growing up and coming through the stages of ministry. And the fact that he was willing to tell people a lot of things they didn't want to hear and draw that line, but not in order to elevate himself, because he has a very good attitude about this stuff, but also willing to point people towards truth and say, whether or not you like it, this is it.
This is what you got.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
Maybe Dan Sprouse is the one who needs the lasso of truth to put on people. And of course, he is, I think he's a mentor to probably a lot of us in this world, especially in this room. I'm going to say that for me, I've got a lot of people I could name, including you guys here in this room. But for me, I think, Norman Ritchie was someone who had been in ministry, retired, and he admittedly had made some mistakes. And during that time between his retirement and the time that he come in and mentor me, he had made some changes God had worked on him, and I mean, he was a tremendous mentor and encourager. So, he had a lot of what do you call that? Vinegar in the blood,
unchained
vinegar. He had a lot of that.
Yeah,
and but he also had a lot of compassion and love for the people, and I thank God for that. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our Bible study. I want everyone who is watching to not only identify who might be investing in you and be that Apostle Paul to you, but also to encourage you to invest in others, to be whether it be a Mamaw or a Paul or a Dan Sprouse or a Norm Ritchie, but to be that for someone else, because that is, really what God calls us to be, is to invest in others.
All right, so we'll wrap that up. Mm-hmm. We'll be back here in a moment. Thank you all for joining us. All right, as we are coming back together, we do need inspiration. We look around our world right now. There are so many destructive things, particularly here in our nation, here in America, and we look at the great principles, the great aspiration that we find from the Holy Scriptures, and we want restoration, we want revival to come, where our nation can rise up and be a righteous force for God that is unique. Again, no earthly nation is the kingdom of heaven, and we should never confuse ourselves with that, but we are called to aspire to the great nobilities of God, the great honorable virtues which God has set before us. And that being said, it matters how we organize our lives. And we're going to have some fun playing Buy, Sell, or Hold with fall decorations for something that's completely different now. This is a little bit of our Unholiness Today segment. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 10 fall decor related questions. And keep in mind, this is the first week of September. So it's not officially fall yet.
No.
So we're going to play with this, and here in October, we're going to do another Buy, Sell, or Hold with real images of fall decorations.
And we got some good ones already.
Already, yeah. All right, so y'all ready for this? How the game works is if you buy it, you like it. If you sell it, you're not. And if you're holding it, and then you say, I don't know, maybe it's garbage, maybe it's not. But you only get one hold per episode. So y'all out there listening to this, send me your thoughts, questions, and comments. And without any further hesitation, let us begin. So, first on Buy, Sell, or Hold is simply this premise. It's the beginning of September. Is it time for fall decorations yet? So the first Buy, Sell, or Hold question is, are we buying any fall decorations before September? Fall doesn't begin for about another 10 days towards the end of September. What about fall decorations actually appearing as early as September while we're still in summer? What do y'all think about that? Buy, sell, or hold? I'm
going to go with sell, I'm going to sell the idea of getting decorations early, but it's not kind of like the same premise of why people are like, don't put up your Christmas tree yet. Do what you want. But it's also, I think it's misleading because I bought 2 sweaters a week ago because they were on sale, and I was like, and I got myself so excited to wear sweaters because I love fall weather and I love fall clothing, and I just fall's my favorite season, and I got myself so excited for it, but then it doesn't happen because it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity. So I think we trick ourselves and it just makes it more miserable. So just keep the fall decorations down, and then when it actually gets cool, bring them out.
Oh, so you're selling simply on the fact that it's a lie to have them out this early.
Yes, it's a lie.
I can agree with that one. Mike?
I'm going to buy only if the cottonwoods are starting to shed a few leaves and we have a cold day or two every now and then. I'm excited about fall. It's one of my favorite times of the year. So I'm ready for summer to leave, and I'm going to buy.
Oh, no. I'm gonna sell like Amanda for the same reason. Don't tease me. Don't tease me. All right, so getting on to our next proposition regarding fall decorations, even though they're not quite here yet, but they're here a lot of places. Carved pumpkins. What do we think about this? Whether they be jack-o'-lanterns, people putting their family, last name on there, SP, whatever, or just a leaf, like in this one that I've got pulled up. What do you think about that? Carved pumpkins.
Yeah, I think they're nice. I think, though, the thing is, if you're going to do a real carved pumpkin, so not a plastic one or a wooden one that you've painted, but if it's a real pumpkin, you got to be careful about the critters you're going to be calling into, and also to pay attention to once, like, they start rotting and things like that. And actually, I think there are some places that can help advise you on how to dispose of your pumpkin properly, because it can actually feed some of the wildlife without endangering yourself or endangering the animal. So just be a conscious decorator. So I'll buy it.
I'm going to buy. I think it's a great family activity. And so, yeah, I'm going to buy for that reason. Some of my favorite moments of Fall Festival is carving pumpkins with family.
Big sell. Pumpkins are nasty. They have always been nasty. They stink wretchedly. So no to the pumpkins. That being said, next on our list are giant spiders. These might be made out of hay. Sometimes these are just giant spiders that you find that are decorations that people put in trees, like the big plastic spiders and things that you buy, whatever they may be. What do we think about this? Amanda, do you need the giant spider?
Yeah, no, I don't like little spiders. I'm not sure making them bigger is a good idea. I think we used to do something. You could buy bags for your fallen leaves, and you fill them up, and then it makes a spider out of it.
I have seen those.
And I'm like, okay, that's like, again, if there's some kind of like real pragmatic problem that you're solving with these decorations, I'm a little bit more prone to them. But as far as just slapping on a giant spider, that's terrifying. So I'm gonna sell this one in general. Although there may be exceptions.
There's an interesting question that is associated with this, and I was actually asked this by my grandmother yesterday. She was like, "Why do people like monsters?" Which, I mean, I watch a lot of movies that have monsters in them. We play games, me and Derek, because we do like a nightly conference call. Me and my brother and another friend we have. And we all live, an hour or 2 hours away from one another. So we get online. We kind of use that as a chat. And we do a lot of stuff with monsters. But my grandmother, she saw a commercial yesterday. She's like, "Why do people like monsters?" And, it is an interesting question. Why do people want a big giant monster in the yard? They're like, "Yeah, what if I had a big old spider?" Like, yeah.
I think the evil we can control is always better than the evil we can't. And so we like horror movies, we like giant spiders, we like Halloween, because it makes the terrible things of the world a little bit funnier and a little bit more controllable in our lives.
That could be plausible. I mean, especially when you take a look at the giant spider here that's like the corrugated pipe, and it's the hay roll. That's not something which is very menacing.
Yeah, right.
To put it nicely. It's really not. So, I think there's one slipping back in here. Pastor Mike, and now it is your turn to answer the buy, sell, or hold question. Do you want the giant spiders in your yard? Yes or no?
No.
No. So that's a sell.
Spiders creep me out, so I'm going to sell on that.
And yeah, I'm going to sell as well. Actually, you know what? For the sake of it, I'll buy it. Had a momentary change of heart. Okay, so next up on our list, we have skeletons that are posed like the living. Now, before you associate that with skeletons posed like the dead, that's coming up later into this. So skeletons that are posed like the living. And you get this in all sorts of crazy ways. Here we've got a skeleton taking a selfie. Here we've got skeletons digging in the yard. They're doing garden work. They're over here working on these bushes.
So it's like having like the pink flamingo or the garden gnomes. They're just skeletons.
Yeah, they're just out there doing it. Here we've got 3 skeletons there with their cowboy hats. They've got like their red Solo cup cooking marshmallows on a fire. So skeletons that are posed like they're alive. Are we buying this or selling this?
I'm going to sell because, again, the same reason as garden gnomes and pink flamingos. It's just a little tacky. Okay. In my opinion.
I'm going to buy.
You gonna buy?
I love going to Anarchista at times, and they have this tremendous. They pose these skeletons fishing, and I don't know. It's just I'm gonna buy. I'm okay with it.
I just realized I was going to sell this, but I think it's always because the skeletons are doing things that I despise. Like they're out there taking
The true horror.
selfies, doing like yard work, which I know some people like mowing the yard. I don't mind mowing the yard, but I hate fighting the lawnmower because the lawnmower always wants to break down on me. It's a zero-turn lawnmower, but it always has some problem. You know, if they were doing something that was an activity that I liked, maybe. But because they're usually doing something that I'd rather not do, sell. So that's on those grounds. All right. Well, up next on our list, what about farm paraphernalia? This is something which is actually quite popular in the fall. You find people, they bring out like wagons, they have like toy tractors or maybe a real tractor that's decorated up. Maybe they have like a hay ride and they just leave the wagon in the front yard. Right here we've got a little wagon. Sometimes you see wheelbarrows and stuff come out and kind of rakes and things sit around. So what do you think about this farm paraphernalia, implements, tools and things like that decorated up for fall? Is that something we're buying, selling, or holding?
I think as long as it's not dangerous, because like it's like going to not Golden Corral,
The dangers of
Cracker
Golden
Barrel?
Corral.
Crackle Barrel.
Yeah.
Like you go to Crackle Barrel and there's like a rusty saw above your head, like that I don't appreciate. But in general, I'll buy.
I'm going to buy. I'm rural, and it doesn't matter how dangerous it is for me. Maybe I'm crazy, but
Yes.
I really enjoy the antique farm equipment paraphernalia brought out. I have a couple parishioners just going down their road. They've got some old hay rakes and things out there. It is just absolutely beautiful. I think personally, so I buy.
And I'm gonna buy too. Amanda's worried about like it being unsafe. I'm fine with like a saw. Like you want to put up like a combine out there that looks like it's eating me. Like okay, I can deal with that. I'll buy that.
I like it when it's decorated though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, which is decorated.
Yeah.
But my thing is, you go to like, since we brought up Cracker Barrel, I've been at Cracker Barrel before where they have bedpans hanging above you, like antique bedpans, like that. Nothing says appetizing like eating up under a bedpan. Like that's always just rings so nice.
Quality right
there. Yeah, you're eating up under your
Class.
bedpan. Which evidently somebody is there to buy the bedpan because they've got like a little tag on them where they're for sale, but like no.
No.
Keep the bedpans, the chamber pots, but I do like saws and stuff like that, so that I could deal with that. All right, so next up on our list is skeletons again, but these are skeletons that are made to look like they're dead. So they've got like a fake crime scene out in the yard, whether it be someone or a ghost or a skeleton hanging. Just the idea of you've kind of tried to make a crime scene. So what about that?
I'm gonna sell it because I don't know, like this is gonna make me sound super superstitious, and I'm not. But it's 2020, people. We don't need to be messing with this. Like, we don't need. Have you seen that kind of funny comic online where like someone's putting a skeleton in their yard, and everyone's like, "What are you doing? We'll call the cops." And they're like, "Oh no, it's Halloween decorations." But it like, and the joke is though actually they were trying to hide a body. Yeah. Like it's things like that. I'm just like, let's just not even play with this. It's just not good. So I'm gonna sell.
Mike.
Oh, it's hard to follow up behind Pastor Amanda. Always. I'm going to buy because of Ezekiel and the dry bones and coming back to life. I think there's an element of resurrection coming out, breaking out of the ground, and I know it's more than the bones, but I'm going to buy because I think it leads into conversations for me. I know it's hard. I know I may lose my credentials now.
This is something I never thought would happen. A biblical defense for the like ghouls hanging in your trees and like skeleton crime scenes in the yard.
As pastors, we're constantly dealing with evil and having to and pointing to God, and so. Dealing with things that kill and destroy, I think it opens up conversations that sometimes you just got to use whatever you can to help point people to Christ.
I was going to sell this, but I just watched you throw a Hail Mary pass and make a biblical defense for
I had to follow
skeleton crime
Pastor
scenes
Amanda.
in the
What do
yard.
you want me to do?
And out of respect for that Hail Mary pass you just threw, I've got to buy it, man. I did not know that anybody would come with like some like biblical stories to defend their ghouls hanging in the yard, but since you were willing to go there, so I'm going to give you a buy on that one.
Yeah.
It
was good.
Yeah, that was good. I'm impressed. All right, next up we have cemeteries in your yard. So when people put up the little foam plastic cemetery things, so what do we think about that?
I'm gonna sell for the same reason I sold the other one. Again, like, just don't be messing with this stuff, people. It's just not good.
Mike?
Well, it's hard to follow Pastor Amanda, but I'm going to buy again simply because I think a small rural church with a cemetery beside the church, it connects the dead with us. And I know we're talking about fall decoration, and it's probably going in a different direction than that. But nonetheless, we are connected to Christ, and through Christ, it also connects us to those who've gone on before us. And there's testimony there, and there's hope. And so, I know you can go either way with it, but I'm just going to buy.
I don't take no holds around here, so I'm going to buy it simply because. But in all honesty, a lot of people are, one of the real worries, because I used to work as a real estate agent. I was a realtor while I was in grad school. But aside from all that, there were a lot of people that were worried about a cemetery being on their property, because there were several houses that I showed over the few years that I did that actually did have a cemetery either adjoining it or it was kind of on the property in a sense. And there were a lot of people who would kind of be worried with that. Some people didn't mind, but it actually was quite it was a big deal to a lot of people. And my thing is, I actually think it could be quite honorable to have something like that. Like, I'm talking like a real cemetery.
The real cemetery y'all are talking about, I'm cool with. It's the fake ones. I'm just like, why are we playing?
Yeah.
So
I see your point.
I actually think there could be a lot of people are really creeped out by having a cemetery on your lot. It wouldn't bother me. I actually think it'd be a noble thing to live there and kind of have that under your care, provided you actually take care of it. Now, if you just decide you're going to, park your old, Facebook Marketplace $400 Nissan 240SX on jack stands over there, no. But if you're going to actually take care of it and have it done in a respectful way, I think it could be an honorable thing to take care of those who have passed away before us. All right, so we're almost done with this list. We'll kind of speed things up. Next up, inflatables. So you get here like the pumpkins made to look like a snowman, but you also find other things. So there's an inflatable like sinking ship that was I saw the other day. It was like the Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like sinking ship like the Titanic. And I was gonna be like,
quite that. Well, what do you think about it? Buy, sell the inflatables?
Sell.
You're selling, Mike?
I'm good with inflatables if it's like a bounce house thing, and I know that's a whole different direction. But the inflatables you're talking about, they even have moving inflatables now. I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna sell.
I would buy until I see like the price tag
on
these
pricey
things. And if you can afford to buy these things and you choose to buy it, I'll leave that up to each individual. These things are expensive. Some of them are neat, the mechanics they have. But personally, I'm going to sell. All right, next up on our list, and we're almost done, is one that's a little bit more obscure, but you do find them from time to time, are the fall projectors. And these, some of them have like a bat signal, which looks kind of like Batman, but then it's more like a vampire bat. Some of them have like a skull or something like that. They're kind of like the Christmas decorations people put on their house with the snow, but the fall version of those that you see each year from time to time. What do we think about these? Buy, sell, or hold?
Buy. These are genius. I am not a decorator. I don't enjoy decorating. I whatever gene like my mom and my sister got that makes them just love decorating, or like even Christy, like they get joy and excitement out of it, and it is like soul sucking for me. So these like projector things I think are genius, because if you could get one that would switch out between the seasons, you just stick one projector in your yard, you hit it from leaves to pumpkins to snowflakes to hearts for Valentine's Day, then like Easter eggs for Easter, then you can do fireworks for July 4th, and you never have to decorate your house again. This is brilliant. So I'm gonna buy.
Mike?
I'm gonna sell. I know it seems like but I do not. I don't know. To me, that just draws a line. I think that should be reserved for Christmas. And I have one that does the different things, not just snowflakes, but you do whatever. But I like them. It's just I don't like them in the fall.
Yeah. I'm gonna buy. And the reason I have for this is kind of interesting. I a couple years ago knew somebody who was passing away, someone connected with the church, and was ministering to them as they were through their last stages of life, and they couldn't get out and do a lot. And their daughter had bought for them one of these projectors, and kind of had it in the house rather than outside, and gave them kind of something different to look at, and would change things out. And in situations like that, and this extends really to all decorations. If you have if you have somebody who doesn't have an opportunity to see a lot of things, and you can use decorations to bring somebody joy and give them something to really stimulate them and just bring joy in life, then certainly buy. And that was something which kind of it brought joy to me to be there and see joy brought to someone. Now, it wasn't like a fall decor. This was at Christmas time, but to see the projectors used in an inside setting to kind of give the house a decoration that was a little bit more than just something here or there, but to see the lights and the things move around on the walls, and it goes across the ceiling too. It was just a nice sensation, so I would buy that. And the last thing that we've got here are the wreaths that people make that are fall oriented rather than Christmas. So what do you think about these?
Again, it's an easy way of decorating your home, and again, you can switch them out. And I've got a really pretty one that I think Christy made me. And again, because I don't decorate, it's about my only decoration, so it's like I can be festive without any effort, and it looks great. So I like wreaths.
I'm gonna buy. I like wreaths. I think there's something symbolic about eternity there that kind of goes with the circular thing. So I love that. But not only that, I think I am married to the most wonderful decorator, Christy, and she just has great talents in decorating, and the leaves and all of that things that she does. I really like that. It gets, like I said, fall's one of my favorite times of the year, and I like it.
Yeah. I'm going to buy two, because I know some people that make some really talented wreaths. They really do excel in putting these things together, and they put you in the right mood for fall. I'm not so big on the decorations being out in September, because you kind of feel like it's a lie when you're smoldering outside and you feel like you're just in an ash heap. But when fall's here and you see the sort of wreaths around everywhere, and just the general colors and the nice decorations that are made like this, it does put you in the right mood. It kind of accents the church well and things of that nature. It does add that atmosphere that's really nice. So I'm big buy on this one. Those who make the wreaths and the leafy decorations, I've yet to see anybody that indulges that task that is not talented at it. It's kind of one of those self-selected. If somebody's going to bother with doing this, they probably know how to do this in a really tasteful way, and they look really good. So that being said, and even if people haven't made them before, I would encourage people to go out and learn to do things. Use your mind.
And that's a good craft. My mom doesn't think she's very crafty, but she's made some fall leaves and Christmas wreaths. And it's one of those crafts that's kind of easy, or it's very varied, so it can be very easy or very difficult depending on your proficiency. So to your point, it is something that can be very aspirational. It's a good hobby for people to use and to do, regardless of you feel like your competency is, and just to give some joy to yourself, learning a new skill, but also joy to others by giving them a gift. So it's one of those things, I think, it used to be a big thing in a lot of churches, especially amongst the women of the church, to do crafts together, and we've kind of lost that. And again, I am not crafty. But there was great fellowship that happened because of it. And so that's something I think we may need to reclaim. And it doesn't have to be wreaths or crafts particularly, but some kind of communal skill that we participate in together.
Sure. Well, as we wrap up this program, thank you for joining us. We are going to share our final thoughts here in a moment, but I would like to throw this out there. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, and go to YouTube as well, and subscribe to Kingdom of the Logos. We would greatly appreciate that, and if you want to grab a link and share it with your friends, we would love it. Also, if you want to reach out to us, you can do that at kingdomoftheLogos@outlook.com, or just look me up. J. Dillon Proctor. You can find me on Parler, on Facebook, on YouTube. You can find me a lot of different places, so look us up, contact us. We are going to share our final thoughts, but one final little detail there. If you would like to help us out monetarily to pay some of the bills for technology and things and advertising, you can do that at patreon.com/kingdomoftheLogos. And we thank you for joining us. And let's have some final thoughts today. Final thoughts about the world as we wrap up. Who would like to go first? Pastor Mike, you look like that mustache is rising up with great anticipation.
And I think as we are called to be the image of God, that, the question is there a hero in the house? Is there a hero that is willing to aspire? And I think, as much as we looked at Batman and Superman and Captain America and Wonder Woman, different superheroes, The truth is, we're going to have to rise up as a people and stand for righteousness and point to Christ Jesus. And so it's a challenge, but it is also an aspiration.
Amanda? And it can be more lighthearted.
So I don't even know if I've got, I don't know. I just finished reading The Haunting of Hill House, and I'm really excited. Netflix is doing another series based on a classic horror called The Haunting of Bly Manor. I'm ready for some scary and spooky stories. I just need the weather to cooperate to make it the full effect. I'm ready for fall.
Yeah.
And I want it to be cold.
Well, Pastor Mike, you had something else?
Well, I got a little something else. If I know everybody's noticed, I probably got an old football jersey on, and so I guess got to say go Montgomery Central Indians. I got to speak to some of those guys yesterday, and they're playing, I think, Northwest, and outstanding group of young men with, very respectful and very talented.
Cool.
My final thought is we need the bat phone for the U.S. Marshals. We'll let them have a little bit more liberty in their jurisdiction as long as they are the defenders of children and puppies.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that to be like a sensation. I mean this like dead seriously. We didn't talk a lot about Batman. Batman deals with those who slip through the cracks, who get away with stuff, the corrupt politicians. He is the response to those in society who aren't held accountable, who have weaseled their way into such a way where they can't be held accountable. And it looks like the U.S. Marshals are pretty good at holding people accountable that otherwise don't get held accountable. So, yeah, call them up on the bat phone. Just call them up. Hey, U.S. Marshals, go to the Netflix headquarters and sort out the whole Cuties things. Send us a address, and we'll clean up the headquarters that's needed afterwards. And thank you for doing the work. May God bless you. And on that, may God bless you out in your homes. Thank you for spending time with us. Again, this is Kingdom of the Logos, a Christian program of critical thinking and adventure. God love you, and have a blessed day.